Welcome to part 3 of the state of the games industry. I've been covering the state of the games industry since late 2023, and if you've been following along with me, you know that we had a lot of highs and definitely a lot of lows since 2023. The first video came out in September 2023, and there was a lot of negativity, a lot of layoffs. We followed up in March 2024 last year, and things were starting to unravel even further, and things were even more scary, even though everybody thought that perhaps things were about to pick up and become normal again. And now this is July 2025, and the industry is starting to rebuild a little bit instead of just reacting. So with that all being said, let's talk about where we are now, what is working, what is still hurting, and where we're gonna go next. Let's get to it. Welcome to another video. My name is Harvey, and I've been in this industry for about 20 plus years, and I love it with a passion, and I love to talk about it in this channel. Now, I want to get straight into the video and talk about this first section of the video, which unfortunately is the negative side of the video, and we'll talk about how the fallout has continued in 2025. So let's not sugarcoat it and just talk about how July and June brought more layoffs. Microsoft announced about 9,000 job cuts. That's a number that is mind-blowing in my mind in a company that is that big and it has that much money. And unfortunately, it feels to me, at least, that most of the layoffs happened on the Xbox division. Now, unfortunately, we're talking here about veteran teams, people with lots of experience, people that have more experience than I have, just basically being disheartened with this industry. And it's really sad to see because, as I mentioned in my previous video, when people like that leave the industry, we kind of lose a little bit of the knowledge, the know-how, the soul of what got us here. So imagine, and I don't know anybody, but this is just an example, but imagine like a veteran person that has worked in a game like Halo and actually has worked from the very first one on Halo, and all of a sudden the person feels so disheartened they don't want to work in games anymore. All of that magic and all of the know-how that they had and they brought with them over time unfortunately gets discarded. And in a company like Microsoft, I have worked with Microsoft before. Unfortunately, you are sometimes constrained to a huge corporation and you cannot be as creative as you once were before. So a lot of studios, you guys know, like Bungie and others, they were very creative before they were acquired. And as soon as they were acquired, all of a sudden it feels kind of like things are mute for a while and then things are not as good as they used to be. And I think this is a symptom of AAA in the industry, how we got here. It didn't used to be this way before, but unfortunately it is the way things are now. And this is why I am sad to see so many people leaving with so much talent and so much knowledge, because this knowledge unfortunately creates what we call in the industry a tech debt that we can never recover from. And this is the biggest sadness for me personally. Obviously that's the personal toll that it takes on families and people, but also like the knowledge that people have with them, right? Like it's gone of the industry, or maybe they don't find another job, or maybe they decide to work somewhere else and we'll never get it again. That is really sad. However, here in this section, because I've worked previously in Microsoft, I wanted to state about how I personally feel about Microsoft, because I like some of the things that Microsoft has done over the years. Xbox 360 era was amazing. I personally have worked on Fable in a studio called Lionhead, and unfortunately the way things ended was not in the best way, and it kind of left a mark in my brain. And then years later, it didn't make it better that actually Phil Spencer came to say that it was a mistake to close that studio and that IP. And now obviously, you know, another studio has that Fable IP. But I think once again, going back to that knowledge being lost, we lost a lot of that knowledge that made Fable Fable. And I'm looking forward to playing the new Fable, and I'm looking forward to what the studio creates with this new Fable. I'm sure it's going to be amazing, but Fable is a game that it has a really strong DNA and personality, and it's very British. It's quintessentially British. And I think that even though it's being made by another British studio, the people that were behind that game basically are working on other games that are not Fable anymore. And part of that is because they feel disillusioned with how things shut down and went on that state, and including myself, right? And it is really sad when these things happen, because you are left with this feeling that like you don't understand things and you like more information, but unfortunately you can't because corporations and big companies, and it's really sad. So I understand, unfortunately, how these layoffs were kind of made of. I understand there's a lot of confusion, but I do think that these things are happening for a good reason. And this segues well into the second section of this video about the rise of co-development. Given the fact that big studios, AAA studios, hired so many people over time, studios with 500, 1,000, 2,000 people working in one game, multiple studios working in one game, that actually created a lot of overhead, basically hiring too many people and not knowing what to do with them. And I think this is part of the reason why we're getting so many layoffs. There's also AI, there's also technology changing and all kinds of stuff. But I do think that there was a lot of overhead coming from COVID for the most part, and also all the years before. But the industry's been growing for a number of years, and it's been like growing massively in comparison to any other industry. And I think this leads us to today. Well, companies are laying off people left, right, and center. And I think this is the beginning of us shifting from studios and companies hiring everybody full-time or contracting individuals to going to a co-dev model. And let me explain more about this. When companies actually want to get the talent, there's two things they do. A game is in pre-production before we actually get into full development, and they actually want to hire the basics of a team to build a game. And that's normally maybe 50 people, 40 people, something like that on AAA. And then they actually build the bones of the game ideally and have a story set up. And then we go into full development of the game, where you now need a team of artists to produce assets, a team of animators to produce animations, a team of designers to design all the little pieces and stuff of the game. And that's when you basically spend the most money. All these people used to be hired full-time all the time. And if you had to ramp up things, normally it would happen towards the last year, 6 months or so of the game development. So it's at this point that you would hire either co-developers, which means studios like Rekindle, our studio, that basically would help you to bolster the animations or the art or whatever you had, because you kind of realize that you are late and you need to make the deadline. So you kind of hire co-developers, they kind of help you to go through the line, and then you kind of like shut them down. Or you hire individual contractors, and then same thing happens and then they shut down. This happens to studios like Naughty Dog and DICE and Gorilla and all kinds of studios. They all kind of do it, some more than others. But the whole idea is that you need more power, more development power, so you hire people. Now, shifting things for today, because of going back to the overhead and having too many people, what happens is that studios are starting to realize, I feel, and this is once again my opinion, I think that studios are starting to realize that having all these people in the studio causes them to do these things going on right now. Firing 9,000 people, firing 20 people, firing 100 people is a bad look for the studio, but also a bad look for the devs, and obviously, you know, causes all kinds of grievance and is really, really bad. Now, if you look at co-deving, this is something that Japan has been doing for the longest time. US, depending on the studios and the games, they used to do it as well. And it's the idea that you can hire either individuals or companies to help you finish the game once again. So co-deving helps studios to basically hire and let go, hire and let go, and then have that sustainability. And I think that these co-dev studios are going to start specializing and bolstering, and all this AAA talent, I think, is going to start gathering into these co-dev hubs, right? So we're going to have maybe an animation studio, Rekindle, let's say, fingers crossed, that is going to be dealing with animation. We're going to have another hub of designers, another hub for programmers. And I think that eventually we're going to get to like developers and then co-devs, and we are going to work in unison to basically build things. And I think this is actually quite brilliant, which takes me to the last part of this video, where I talk about Rekindle, the studio that I just joined, calling it a safe haven. I joined Rekindle as a strategic development director, but also animation director. And as the heads of Rekindle, go and check out the video that I made before, where I interview everybody that basically is in the leadership at Rekindle. They're great people. We actually want to basically become a safe haven for all the people out there that actually are in needing of work. Now, the reason why I say this is not because we actually think of ourselves as saints at all. It's actually because most developers out there are looking for a way to basically sustain themselves for a long period of time. What happens in a code dev studio is that you work for a studio and you help them ship a game or work on a feature or fix a problem they have, and then that contract's finished. So let's say you work for them for 6 months, a year. Games take a long time, so if you have work for 6 months to a year, which then allows us to basically get other jobs, then allows us to shift you to another job. So now you're working on another studio with another project and having fun. And it also means that if any one studio shuts down, right, it means that we can actually shift you to another project if necessary. And now this is working beautifully and it's great, and I hope it continues going, because ultimately it's all about having fun. Number one, to me at least, as an artist, I want to have fun on the projects that I am, but also having peace of mind with the money that you get, because you want to sustain your families, you want to pay the bills and all these other things. You want to make sure those two things are fair, right? You're actually having fun, but at the same time you're doing your job professionally, and you're getting paid enough that you feel good by your progression, the stuff that you've been, the projects that you've been a part of, your CV, your resume is growing, all of those things. And I think this is where we are going forward in the games industry. I really think that games got to a point that is so expensive, requires so many people, and it takes so long that unless we actually go move into this code dev that we all helping each other and basically we have multiple parts working together, I don't think we'll be able to sustain the AAA side of things. Another experience of mine was also in Battlefront. EA, the game became so big that EA had to use 3 studios, I think it was 3 or 4 studios, to build one game. So one studio was taking care of space, another studio was taking care of the single player side of things, and another studio, which was DICE, was creating all the multiplayer side of things and stuff. And this is because they have multiple studios. But what happens to the studios they don't have multiple studios and still want to make a AAA game, right? This is where you use code dev. So to me, my mind makes sense. And once again, it's going to be another video that years from now, I'm going to look back and understand what I'm saying, and hopefully it's going to make sense, and hopefully I was right. I might be wrong, but I do think that this is where the industry is going and where the state of the industry is at this point in time. In 5 years, 10 years from now, we'll find out if this is true. However we slice it, definitely if you are an animator, an artist, character artist, a rigger, anybody within the art, kind of spectrum of games, and if you are experienced especially, director, lead, senior, all that stuff, definitely get in touch with us. I'll leave a link down below so you can actually kind of fill our form that we basically will check your profile, check your show reel and stuff, and as soon as there's projects, we'll definitely get in touch with you. So that's a plug for Rekindle, but we are definitely doing good work. We're having a lot of fun, and all those things that I mentioned before are 100% true, at least with us, right? We cannot look anywhere else because we don't know what other companies are doing, but at least with us, this is very true at this point, and this is why I'm making this video, to highlight some of the things that hopefully will happen in the next years. And if those things happen, I think that the whole industry is going to end up in a much better place, in a much more sustainable place. And I know film is going through problems right now, and the problems are completely different. It's to do with people not going to the cinema, people not buying tickets, all that stuff, not buying physical copies. Netflix is a completely different issue. But the one thing that we should take from film in games, I think, is how sustainable of a model they became over time, where to the point that everybody understands that we need multiple studios to work on one film in order to make it the best film possible. And I do think this is where we're going. Let's see, fingers crossed. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, consider dropping a comment, giving it a like, and if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Subscribe for more, and until the next video, stay well, stay safe. Peace. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, go ahead and hit the like button. If you super enjoyed it, leave a super thanks. It's like leaving a little tip, and it directly supports the channel. If you haven't already, subscribe and turn on post notifications so you can continue to see my videos and get your weekly dose of better living.